Okay guys, let's move on. Okay, before we go on to example 1, so you need to know when a less than 0, what does it mean? It means that it is deceleration because the value of a is negative. So the particle is facing a deceleration. Betul ke? Tak tahulah betul ke tak ayat tu. Okay, so when a equals to 0, so that means uniform velocity, and when a is positive, so that means acceleration. Okay, so next let's look at example 1. A particle moves along a straight line with initial velocity of 5 meter per second. Initial velocity of 5 meter per second. Its acceleration a is given by a equals to 9 minus 40, where t is the time in second after passing through a fixed point O. Okay, so in this case, it is defined that O is a fixed point. Okay, so find a, the time in seconds when its acceleration is 0. So in this type of question, you need to understand that you need to determine which are the key words. Okay, the first thing, initial velocity of 5 meter per second. When we talk about initial, that means our time must be equals to 0. So you need to know initial velocity. So this part, when t equals to 0, v is equals to 5. Okay, so and then the time in second in its acceleration is 0. So this question asks what is the time when a is equals to 0. So let's look at a. Okay, so a, what is time when a is equals to 0? The question gives us acceleration function. So we said that a is equals to 0. Therefore our a is 9 minus 40 will be equals to 0. So 40 is equals to 1. T is equals to 9 over 4 seconds. So this is the time when acceleration is 0. So B, A is at A second. So let's look at B. B, the maximum velocity of the particle. So when we talk about maximum or minimum, we are talking about dy dx equals to 0. Okay, in this case, we are talking about acceleration time. Okay, we are talking about acceleration, or we can say that this acceleration comes from graph velocity time. So we are talking about dv dt is equals to 0. So before, in the previous video, when we talk about dv dt, what does it mean? We are talking about acceleration. So maximum is about acceleration equals to 0. Okay? Maximum velocity of the particle. Let me check it. Okay. So when a equals to 0, so the question asks what is max v. So v sama dengan apa? What is v when a is equals to 0? So this is what this question is talking about. So first find a equals to 0. When a is equals to 0, so what does it? 9 minus 40 is equals to 0. So our t is 9 over 4. So what does this mean? So when 9 over 4 seconds, it reaches maximum velocity. So this is what that it means. So when t is equals to 9 over 4, we need to find what is the velocity. However, we don't have velocity function, so we need to find velocity function. So how can we find v from a? Okay, tadi kita ingat balik s v t ini differentiate t pula a. So a is equals to dv dt. However, when we want to find v, we integrate a. When we want to find s, we integrate v. So ni kena ingat. You need to remember this one. So when we want to find v from a, so what we are going to do? We are going to integrate a. So we integrate a. Our a is 9 minus 4t. So v is equals to 9t minus 2t squared plus c. So remember, this is our information. When t is equals to 0, v is equals to 5. Okay, so when 5, 9, 0 minus 2, 0 squared plus c, so we have c is equals to 5. So our velocity function is actually 9t minus 2t squared plus 5. This is our velocity function. But the question asks for maximum velocity. When does maximum velocity reach? When t is equals to 9 over 4. So substitute t equals to 9 over 4. So we will have v is equals to 1 to 1 over 8, or 15 1 over 8, or 15.125 meter per second. Okay, so our maximum velocity is 15.125 meter per second. Okay, remember, when we talk about maximum or minimum velocity, we are talking about a is equals to 0. So when we want to find what is the maximum velocity, you need to relate it with a equals to 0. So when we relate a equals to 0, we are going to find the time in which the maximum or minimum velocity is achievable. Okay, and when we find the time, we just transfer or we just substitute the value of time in velocity function. So this is a and this is b. So how about c? Okay, so how about c? Okay, see, the time in second when the particle stops instantaneously. So, when the particle stops, is there any movement? No, right? So, when we talk about no movement, when we talk about movement, we relate it to velocity. So, when it stops, what does it mean? It means v equals to 0. So, this question asks for time when v is equals to 0. Okay, so for c, v equals to 0, so this will cari time. So our v before v is equals to 9t minus 2t squared plus 5. So v is equals to 0, so 9t minus 2t squared plus 5 is equals to 0. So, apa yang kita kena buat? Solve the quadratic. So, we will have negative 2t minus 1, t minus 5 is equals to 0. So, we have two values of t. So, basically, we have t is equals to half, negative half, sorry, and t is equals to 5. So, when is the time? Remember, time cannot be negative. So, this reject. So, our times is equals to 5. So, when does the particle stop? When it reaches 5 seconds. Okay, so let's look at D. Okay, D, find the time, find the total distance by the particle for the first 6 seconds. Okay, since we are talking about velocity in which it is quadratic, so it is helpful for you to sketch the graph. Okay, so we know when v is equals to 0, we have negative half and t equals to 5. So I sketch, okay. Let me sketch, okay. This is negative, so we have maximum graph. So basically macam ni lah. Okay, so this is negative half. This is 5. And since we are talking about 6 seconds, so this is 6. So this is our V. Okay? Okay, remember, when we talk about total distance, we are talking about from initial time. So, initial begins with 0. So, where is the total distance we are talking about? Where is the distance we are talking about? So, we have two areas, different areas, in which this one, the positive area, and from 5 to 6, the negative area. So, we learn that total distance, when we are given velocity time graph, we can find total distance by integrate, okay, by doing some integration. Okay, so from here, we know that our total distance is from 0 to 5, integrate V, okay, integrate V, so integrate 90 minus 2t squared plus 5, plus from 5 to 6. 5 to 6 is the negative area, so remember to put the modulus sign. Okay, so integrate. So this will be 9 over 2t squared minus 2 over 3t cubed plus 5t from 0 to 5. And then plus 9 over 2t squared minus 2 over 3t cubed plus 5t from 5 to 6 modulus. Okay, and then you substitute the values. Okay, when you substitute the values, we will have 3 to 5. Okay, remember, you need to show the substitution. Okay, this is the shortcut, but don't do the shortcut. You need to show the substitution of the values, because in exam the marks are given when you substitute the values. So don't follow this. You need to substitute. Okay. Okay. So 3 to 5 over 6 plus modulus of negative 27 over 6, in which we have 3 to 5 plus 37 over 6, in which gave us 61 over 3, or 362 over 6. Huh? Huh? Okay. Yang ni turun tekan sekejap. Balik kan. Sekejap Cil. Tekan sekejap ni. Ni. 325 tambah 376.
360.
362 ni betul?
Betul?
Betul. Okay. Okay, betul Okay. So we will have 362 over 6 meter. Okay, so this is for D. Okay, remember when we talk about total distance, it is very helpful to sketch the graph. How can you sketch? Find V equals to 0. Because of why? Because we want to see the root of the function. Okay, let's say this one is the root of the function, because we have find V equals to 0. So from here, you need to determine which area we are talking about. Since we are talking about for the first 6 seconds, therefore we are talking about from 0 to 6. So from here we can see, oh, we are given two different areas in which we cannot integrate from 0 to 6 together. We cannot. So we need to separate. So from 0 to 5, 5 to 6. Okay? So we are going to discuss on another example. in the next one.